Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast with me, Simon Ward, your host. Today we have a Cold War warrior joining us. Welcome to Moz Perkins. Hi, Moz.
Hi, good afternoon, Simon. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's good to have you on. The 6 books out there. That's good. Has that been going well?
It has. I started writing in 2020. It was actually something I picked up during lockdown. I was sharing funnies every day on Facebook and old funnies, which I share daily on Twitter anyway. But I decided just to throw some of my own stories in, and they were received quite well. And one of my old mates said, you could write a book, and if you did, I'd buy it. And I just went, nah, really?
It's a good gig. It's not the most profitable gig, but I mean, there's a lot of people say they're going to write a book and never do. So the fact that you have, and you've got it out there, and 6 of them, you're obviously doing very good.
Yeah, I mean, I tell stories, and I've got young grandchildren, and I would love them to know my funny stories, but I can't tell them yet because they're all toddlers. So writing the book and writing it in my words, my memoirs, or the 3 books are my memoirs, but I've told my life as a series of funny stories. So it's not I was born on, then I went to. So I just throw you straight in, and I try and grab readers' attention with, a dramatic story and a lot of funny stories, and there's a lot of bad language in there as well. So
that's I think that's one thing. It's you're leaving a legacy, aren't you? Sort of leaving your imprint on the world.
Well, it'll be a point in the future where I won't be able to remember the stories, and I wouldn't be able to tell them in the same way. So when my grandchildren are all at 5, 6 years old, 7, the eldest, when they get older, I might not be able to tell the stories in 10 or 20 years time. So I thought I'd write them down, and I knew I'd sell some books to my mates. I didn't think I would sell as many as I have, and over the course of 4 years, I've sold about 3,500 books. So I know I'm doing something okay. Mainly the memoirs, but also my novels.
That's brilliant. I'm just thinking when you say sort of you won't remember them. My dear dad, he's passed now, sadly. We used to play Monopoly, and he was the hard-nosed negotiator in Monopoly. And we had a game with him. It was a couple of years ago, and he was probably 85 at the time. And we got to a negotiation, and he said, if you're going to play like that, I'm not going to play. He says, I never used to play like that. I said, are you having a laugh? He was like worse than anybody. He was the right Alan Sugar, Dragon's Den all rolled into one sort of negotiator.
My children would say the same thing, that they were brought up in a very competitive environment, and they've all been competitive as individuals, and now they're all competitive parents in the same way. So
I don't think I'm competitive, but everybody I talk to tells me I am. But that's been a bit part of. I was one of 6, so I think being one of the youngest of 6, there's an element of competitiveness that sort of has to go there with that, doesn't it? Of the 3 novels you've done, are they what's the focus of those? Is that sort of military? Because you've got a good military background with the forces.
They are and they aren't. So they're definitely different. So just to kind of put it out there, my memoirs are written as if I was telling you a story over a beer. So they're not necessarily the greatest in terms of grammar and comprehension, whereas the novels have all been professionally edited, and my writing has got better. My 3 novels, the first novel's called Quest, and it's a survival story. Post-apocalyptic disaster, there's very few people left in the world. How do you survive when no one's making anything anymore? And where there's no law enforcement and people will take advantage. So that's what that story's about. It's about a group of people who go from A to B, and then they go back a bit.
That's how do you survive? That's almost 2024, isn't it?
Well, funnily enough,
the world's gone that way already, doesn't it?
Yeah, so there's a pandemic, and then there's a world war when the Russians go one way and the Chinese go another, which is not bad where we are right now. And then what might happen if that thing goes to its conclusion?
Yeah, it's
So,
a scary old world. Obviously, with us, with a few years behind us, or as Billy Joel used to say, when we wore younger men's clothes, that was it.
that was it. I like that. Yeah. And
And
then
we've seen
I'm
some
sorry.
changes, haven't we?
Yes, we have, and not necessarily all for the best. I think where the world is right now in terms of democracy, where the world is right now in terms of fairness and equality, seems to be just as bad as it was 50, 60 years ago. And if we're not careful, we'll drift into another disastrous world conflict like we did in the 1940s.
Yeah, it's not great, not great times. On a more cheery note, um, you say on your autobiographical stuff, how did you format that? Did you sort of do a first draft and then
Didn't
tidy it up, or what was your process?
Several drafts. So it started off with a series of stories, and then I didn't want to link them together chronologically, and so they kind of follow themes. They kind of follow a line or an event or a series of events. And formatting wise, I used Kindle, so I didn't. I'm not expecting to make any money out of it. I get about £1 a book now, so
Yeah,
you don't become rich writing books. But in terms of where I was, I didn't want to spend a lot of money. So I used Kindle Direct Publishing,
yeah,
and it's actually not too difficult to follow their formatting process. Takes a
yeah,
little bit of reading, but their formatting process is quite simple. And I just
yeah.
followed it to the letter virtually. That gave me the format I use in Word to enable me to write me 3 novels, and they were already formatted, ready to go. My niece did the cover art for my first novel and my second novel,
Oh,
and
brilliant.
then a guy locally in Stockport did the cover for my last novel. But the last 2 novels are dark comedy thrillers, so kind of brutal action, tough dialogue, lots and lots of dark humour. So when you ask me the question, is there a military element to it? Well, yes, there is. I guess there's a military element to the way that the survivors survive in Quest, and there's definitely a military element to Revenge because it's about a group of old veterans with hidden skills who stumble into a gang turf war, and revenge begets revenge begets revenge.
That
And
sounds that sounds good. The novels that you've written thereafter, did your process change much?
my writing process did. So whereas it was easier for me to capture stories and then put them in order, when I came to write my novels, because there are light timelines, plot twists, characters you need to follow through a story, I use spreadsheet. So I used to be a project manager, project director in the construction sector, and I kind of use that same process. So in fact, I'm looking up now, glancing up at this is only a 7 A4 page spreadsheet that's stuck together for the book I'm currently writing. The
Yeah.
biggest was 27 sheets of A4 paper with a
Wow.
spreadsheet that showed chronology, characters, twists, and it's my reference point. And I look up and it reminds me, keeps me on track.
That's quite a complex world then, with all that.
My stories are so Quest is there's quite a few characters, and it's a difficult story. Survival is a difficult thing,
Yeah.
and Revenge has quite a big cast, and I try to um, share that cast as early as I can in the book. But there's a number of moving parts. It's like a Guy Ritchie film. The way I
Yeah.
write, it's like I write in that similar kind of style where it doesn't just happen in a chronological order. That's just not the right way to tell a story.
No. Do you think your confidence has built as you've been progressing with more books?
I honestly didn't think I'd sell more than 50 books, and that's why I went through the self-publishing thing. I thought it's not going to cost me any money. I can print these books off. If anybody buys them, they're paying whatever the rate is to buy them. I printed some paperback copies off, and I've been signing them and selling them to friends and family, and I've donated a few as prizes for different things. But the confidence of complete strangers buying my work and commenting back that it made them laugh, it's like, wow. It's
That's good.
I can imagine how a performer feels on stage when the audience claps. It's that sort of feeling, and it just gave me the confidence to carry on. And I'm writing one now, and it's making me laugh writing it. So I'm I'm hoping that transposes through to readers.
So as far as telling the stories and the raconteur sort of tag, would sort of appearing on stage and telling your stories, is that something that would be a step too far for you, or is that something you'd enjoy?
No, I think I'd enjoy. I've stood up before a writing group before now, and I've been on the stage and told my own story in terms of mental health and well-being. I've got a podcast I did with a guy called Jeff Jones, and it was a difficult area to talk about coming back from a mental health challenge, and still smiling. It is something, but it's a good story. So I'm not frightened of standing up and speaking. Never have been.
So as far as book sales are concerned, do you advertise much, or is it just word of mouth and local gigs and that sort of thing?
A bit of both. So a bit of word of mouth. I use Twitter X to share my links to my books. I use LinkedIn and I use Facebook. I've tried Facebook ads, didn't find them at all successful. I've tried Amazon ads, didn't find them at all successful. So, and as a writer, you're often approached by people who want to help you market. Everybody wants to help you market for a fee, and I've got a finite budget. I know where I'm up to, and I know that I've got enough money to pay for the editing of my next book, and that'll pretty much that's me break even then.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people sort of saying they can promote your book. I had an interesting conversation with Torn McAllister, I think it was, and it was when people approach him, he says to them, "Have you read my book?" Sort of see whether they've got an understanding of it. I did have one girl on, and I recorded it, but I haven't posted it. Maybe I should post it. It was an example of how a very polished Twitter profile can fall apart very, very quickly. Because it was a very poor connection, and that's probably one of the main reasons I haven't shared it online. But she just hadn't got a clue. She hadn't got a clue. She just wanted money, and every question I asked was she sort of almost ignored the question and said, "Oh, would you like the expensive thing or the more expensive one?" And I just couldn't get through to her at all. It's like didn't understand my language, and I think I'm not that hard to understand. I know I'm Black Country, West Midlands, but I mean, it was a interesting torture.
It amuses me when I see the word expert. I am a marketing expert, and I'm always drawn to that. It's an oral joke rather than a written joke. But an expert, the definition of an expert, an X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So it always amuses me when I see that word expert in anything.
Do you know I think the definition of that is if you know 5% more than the average person, you're an expert.
Okay.
But the people I've had talk to me about books and that, promoting books and that sort of stuff, seem to be struggling with that 5%. I think
it's difficult. It's about engagement, and one of the things I've been able to do through my humour. So I should probably share about a dozen cartoons or funnies a day, every day on Twitter. And through that medium, people engage back with me. They engage with me when I tell my stories, and I'm quite open. So I told the story about getting stuck under the table before when I was.
Yeah, I read that just before we came on air. I thought that was funny.
It is. It was a funny moment, and I shared it. And I'm quite happy to do so. I was in Aldi the other week, and we were shopping for salad stuff, and I saw this little packet of chili fingers, and it said, "Chili fingers, spice up your salad." Oh, I like chili. I threw them in the supermarket trolley, and then when we got home, I'd rinsed them on some sugar snaps and some other things, and they were drying in a colander while we were unpacking and packing the shelves. I thought I'll just try one. Put the chili in it. I ate half the chili. I thought, that tasted okay. So I had the other half of the chili, and then I carried on. And then the burn started. And I couldn't drink enough water. I was rinsing my mouth out. I was coughing and spluttering. My wife thought it was hilarious because I eat chilies. I can eat jalapenos like they went out of fashion. Could not breathe. The burn and the afterburn on my lips and down my throat. I drank a pint of milk. I think I drank a pint of water, and I kept swilling my mouth out. It's the hottest thing I've ever tasted. I reread the packet. At no point anywhere on the packet did it say, these are hot chilies, be careful. Spice up your salad. Good gracious me. So I shared that story, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah, that's good. Have you ever tried cayenne pepper?
Cayenne pepper. Yeah, I like cayenne pepper. I like cayenne pepper on omelets. Nice.
That's hot, isn't it?
And Tabasco sauce. It's good. Just livens up an omelette.
Tabasco. To be honest, the jalapenos things, and that's a bit hot for me, really. I'm sort of steak and kidney pie and chips man, really. But,
I like shaving a Scotch bonnet into a curry as well, just to give it a bit of spice. It's nice.
A Scotch bonnet into a curry. That sounds good. I'm hungry now. I've only had a little bit of a snack. I've now had dinner. Who's the biggest champion for your writing?
Biggest champion's probably my brother. He reads everything that I write. He's my younger brother. We're very close, even though we're 12 years apart. I watched him. He's 55. I watched him play in a football tournament on Sunday, and they went out for a few beers. He's my critic, so he'll tell me where I'm going right, where I'm going wrong, and he helps me no end. So I think he's my champion. And then it's me. I stand up on my own 2 feet, always have done, and I'm not frightened of sticking my chin out. And if somebody wants to have a swing, they can have a swing, kind of thing.
Well, that's as from what you were saying with your career, you've sort of had quite a senior position there.
Not always so. I mean, when I first came out of the Navy, I worked for the local authority in a control room, handling highways and building maintenance calls and street lighting and things. Then I went to work on the trams in Manchester as a senior controller, traffic manager, operations director. And then there was, the next stop for me would have been MD, but I didn't get there. Somebody else came in and said, we want our own people to do this. So I took my trade elsewhere, and I went to Atkins as a consultant, and then into highways and construction and maintenance. And then I went into Skanska, and I had a great career, but only because I think I've been lucky and I work hard.
Well, you work hard. What does I say? The best way to stop losing your shirt is to keep your sleeves rolled up. That's
I like that
Jim Rohn quote and all that.
Well, I work hard and I like a challenge. So some people say, "Oh no, that sounds a bit dodgy." I'll have a go at it, and because I'd have a go, it's doors have opened. I've had a chance to travel. I worked in Canada, I've worked in Belgium, I worked in Australia, lived and worked in Australia for about 9 months, because I said yes. And some people would say, "Oh no, that's just it's too complicated," and I've just had a go at it.
That's it. The writing wise, what do you find most difficult?
I think the hardest thing for me is whilst I'm structured and I've got the spreadsheet up there, I'm very creative and my mind works overtime. So the hardest thing I've got is to slim down those thoughts into something that's coherent and or is able to carry on. I see, I have slapstick comedy appearing in my head all the time. I see something in the street. I watch something on the telly, not deliberately being comedic. It's just, I find it really funny. I find the strangest things funny sometimes. And I think I can find a place for that. But then sometimes I have too many ideas. So I think the toughest thing is focusing, but not losing the creativity. And actually that's quite hard. It flexes quite a bit. Because you have to be creative. If you're not creative, you're not doing yourself justice, and you certainly won't entertain readers.
Yeah, I think you're quite right there. I'm sort of similar to you in some respects. Comedy jumps into my head all the time, and particularly in work situations, you really have to bite your tongue and not tell people, not let the jokes out. I was on a course recently, social media creator course, and the guy said he had a bouncy castle business, but he'd stopped doing it. So, like, you could imagine the jokes that sort of immediately come into your head with that. It's like, oh, was it a bit of a letdown? And did it go flat? Yeah, that's it. So I held back, and then the following day he sort of came out with it again. I just had to unload. Really, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Really.
But I think things can flip both ways. We were submitting a bid, quite a big bid, and it was the pre-qualification. And I was going on holiday the following day really silly early flight at 6 o'clock from Manchester Airport, and we're in Birmingham. And I said, I need to go. I need to get the last train. I'm not staying. I've got a plane to catch in the morning, and I'm away. And as I said goodbye, my colleague turned around to say, don't be sending us any photographs of you in a pair of Speedos. So I turned around to say, I can't wear Speedos because I'm too fat. But as I turned around to say I can't wear Speedos because I'm too, I realised that several of my colleagues are quite rotund and I shouldn't use the word fat. So in the last moments, I substituted big. So it went something like, sorry, I can't wear Speedos because I'm too big, which got far more laughs. Oh, I said, no, not that way. So humour arrives by surprise sometimes.
Yeah.
And it depends how you grasp it.
I think writing humour is very tricky, I think. So we're going to have a look at some of your books, I think. We'll put some links in the description so people can sort of have a look and get some of your writing and that sort of thing. It sounds like it's a blast. Before we finish, Moz, guilty pleasures. What's your guilty pleasures?
My guilty pleasure is alcohol. I like a beer, and I like a beer, and I like to socialise. It's great for my mental health and well-being, and I see my friends and my family as often as I can. But it's also my undoing. If you read my memoirs, is because alcohol has been my undoing in many occasions and has got me into lots and lots of trouble. I just wrote a short article for my local magazine, which is actually an extract from a book, and the section's entitled "Underage Drinking," and a series of events that took place when I was 16 years old.
I think that drinking sort of does create lots of humorous stories in itself, doesn't it?
It does, but you have to keep on top of it. I have a friend who's confirmed alcoholic, and he manages it. I have another friend who's kind of in denial about it. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's quite difficult. I think my lad's 18, sort of going on 19, and he's sort of started drinking, and he's sort of just starting to tail it back a little bit now. But he went out yesterday and had like a skinful. He played golf, and they had a can for each hole they did. It's a good job that he did 9 holes.
Yeah,
and they went for a drink after that, which I'm what they call a 2-pint dad. 2 pints, and that's me done. I can't have any more than that, or I'll be sort of rolling around the floor and that sort of thing. Moz, this has been absolutely brilliant. It's been great having you on. I say we've got your links in the description, and obviously everybody follow this channel. We're trying to get our subscriber numbers up to 1,000, so we've got a bit of a way to go, but if you can help us with that, that would be good.
I certainly will.
And yeah, guilty pleasures. I think what's mine? I think I do like a vodka and Pepsi is my sort of favorite tipple. I like a little gamble, which is something.
Yeah.
Have you ever got caught into gambling, or you keep out of the way?
I do now. I keep out of the way now. There was a period of time when I lost a lot of money betting on horses, and not for a long period, thankfully. It's about 3 or 4 months, but I found that quite hard to kick. So for anybody that's stuck in that gambling thing, I feel really, really sorry for them, because when you've got that, your brain just doesn't compute anything else.
No.
Bizarre.
But I wrote a non-fiction book. It's only a small book, Gambling Know the Score. And I talk about both sides of the gambling world, sort of from the promoter's point of view and from the punter's point of view.
Yeah.
And part of that, I sort of experimented with spread betting. And people have to read the book because I don't share it, because it was a very embarrassing time. So we'll step aside from that.
We'll leave it there.
Right then, as I say, Moz, it's been great. Good luck with the writing, and it's not always, as you say, it's not always about the sales. It's about the people and the emotions that we can portray and affect people with sort of taking them out of their world and giving them a smile.
That's what I try to do. That's what I try to do. And hopefully, judging by the number of people that have bought my books and the comments that I've had back on Amazon, the reviews have been good.
Yeah, that's fantastic, mate. Good luck with it. Nice one. Champion.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. Cheers, buddy.